Now, when Labour officially publishes its election manifesto tomorrow, it's in places like Dagenham where it hopes it'll be best received. Labour's John Cruddas held onto the seat 2 years ago, extending his majority to nearly 5,000 votes. But this year, the Tories are targeting victory, banking on winning votes from UKIP supporters who numbered more than 12,000 in 2015. The seat of Dagenham and Rainham is one of London's key election battlegrounds, as our political correspondent Simon Harris now reports.
For decades, Dagenham was a one-party town. This was working-class East London, where once 40,000 people made cars like the Ford Cortina. Today, much of the old factory has been flattened. They no longer make cars here, just engines. And some of the old loyalties have vanished too. At Rainham Working Men's Club, voting Labour can no longer be taken for granted. What about Jeremy Corbyn?
No way whatsoever.
Personally, myself, I will vote Conservative.
Have you always voted Conservative?
No.
Well, I won't vote for Theresa May. I don't trust her at all.
It was once unthinkable that the Labour Party could lose one of its heartlands like this. Dagenham has elected a Labour MP for as long as anyone can remember. But in 2015, UKIP came second, polling almost 13,000 votes. And it's those votes Labour and the Conservatives are fighting for. The Conservative candidate, Julie Marson, is convinced Brexit has changed the local political landscape.
Clearly we had the local elections, which were, I think, a trailer for what's happening. But we're getting the same response. People are saying, we did support UKIP in 2015, but now we trust Theresa May to deliver our vote.
John Cruddas is fighting for his political life. A former advisor to Tony Blair in Downing Street, he's been the Labour MP here since 2010. He voted to stay in the EU. Most of his constituents wanted out. Do you think your constituents have forgiven you?
I think they respect where I'm coming from. I think they also realise that my view now is to get on with it. I very much support, actually, and voted the same way as Theresa May on this, and now think we should get on with it, and voted to trigger Article 50.
In the Eastbrook pub, UKIP's candidate and senior colleagues are holding a strategy meeting. They don't buy the notion that this is a Labour-Tory contest.
What I would say is that the Conservatives should stand aside, because there is real danger that they will split our vote, and UKIP are the only party that can beat Labour here.
So you don't think this is a two-horse race?
Yes, I do. Yes, it's a two-horse race between Labour and UKIP.
Dagenham and Rainham is not fertile territory for the Lib Dems or Greens. Both polled fewer than 1,000 votes 2 years ago.
Our message as Liberal Democrats to voters in Dagenham and Rainham is that every single vote for us will be like sending a personal note to Theresa May that we do not back her and her hard Brexit.
According to the Green candidate, it's all about the next election.
The person who probably would have been here today is taking her finals at university, so she couldn't take the time off to fight the election. So we have a young party coming through in this area, and she'll be fighting the next one.
John Cruddas is defending a majority of almost 5,000. He knows, and his Tory rival knows, if even half of the UKIP vote goes Conservative, Labour will lose this once safe seat. Simon Harris, ITV News, Rainham.
And here is a full list of candidates standing in Dagenham and Rainham. The list is also available on the ITV News London website. Labour officially launched its election manifesto today, almost a week after a draft copy was leaked in advance. There were a few changes in the final version, including details of how it would fund nearly £50 billion worth of pledges. But while there was a promise to invest in low-emission vehicles, air quality campaigners in London expressed dismay that the party hasn't committed to the diesel scrappage scheme, which has, of course, been championed by the capital's mayor. Well, our political correspondent Simon Harris has more.
For London's Labour mayor, cutting pollution has become a crusade, so there was every expectation his party's manifesto would endorse his call for tough measures. And there were promises to create clean modes of transport, to invest in low-emission vehicles and to retrofit thousands of diesel buses. Labour's boldest proposal to tackle pollution is a new Clean Air Act. But the manifesto is short on detail, and crucially, there's no mention of a diesel scrappage scheme. That is a key component of the Mayor's plan to introduce an ultra-low emission zone. Environmentalists agree.
Unfortunately, all that's on the table from the government at the moment is a scrappage scheme for 9,000 of those 12 million diesel cars, and we have nothing so far explicitly from Labour. So we must see all parties committing to a serious scrappage scheme.
I would hope to see scrappage as part of that Clean Air Act, along with a number of other things that Sadiq Khan has championed, such as control on emissions from river traffic, construction traffic, and things of that nature.
The manifesto also said pollution would play a key part in whether a Labour government would allow a new runway at Heathrow Airport. The Liberal Democrats accuse Labour of fudging a decision.
I think this is what we've come to expect from Labour. They've provided no opposition whatsoever on Brexit, and so it doesn't surprise me at all to find that they're not going to provide any meaningful opposition on Heathrow expansion either.
To say that you can expand airports whilst keeping noise and air pollution within limits, we know that for Heathrow that's not true, and they should have been saying so. I think it's very, very disappointing that they're so weak on the environment in this manifesto.
The Conservatives dismissed the Labour manifesto as nonsensical.
The people who will pay the price for the pledges we've heard today from the Labour Party are ordinary working families who will see their taxes rise. That's the only way the sums can add up under what we've heard today.
Londoners will have to wait until Thursday before they can see if the Tory manifesto has any pledges about pollution or Heathrow. Simon Harris, ITV News.
We heard two promises from the Lib Dems today to try to get more houses for Londoners. They want to hit foreign investors with a huge hike in council tax if they buy properties to make money rather than living in them or renting them out. The party's second manifesto pledge to halt the so-called buy-to-leave market is a ban on such properties being advertised abroad. But in the age of the global internet, would that really put investors off? Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
The tower cranes sporting the colours of political parties are probably a coincidence, but once again, London's housing crisis has taken centre stage in an election. The Liberal Democrats believe overseas investors are fuelling a surge in property prices and blocking the ambition of Londoners who want to become homeowners.
There is a massive problem if you see some of the big property developments going up around the Thames. Many of these places have been left empty, they've been acquired by overseas buyers. So they're sitting there at a time when local people can't afford either to buy or rent, and this is outrageous.
There are no precise figures for the number of new homes sold to foreign investors. Some estate agents have suggested it could be as high as 50%. Today, the Liberal Democrat manifesto promised a crackdown on the so-called buy-to-leave market, suggesting empty or second homes should be hit with council tax bills twice as high as everyone else's. The manifesto talks of giving British buyers a fair chance. Developers would be banned from advertising properties abroad before they're offered for sale here, although it's not clear how that would be enforced.
We had double-height ceilings.
Property developer and consultant Alan Waxman says overseas sales are often vital to ensure a project goes ahead.
This is an obligation from the bank in order to then get the monies to then be able to develop. If they don't develop, they can't then give the contribution to affordable housing to help the other parts of society. So it's a vicious circle.
Today's manifesto included a promise to build 300,000 new homes per year. Yesterday, Labour offered a figure of 200,000. The Conservative target is expected in their manifesto tomorrow. The Lib Dem leader launched his manifesto today during a visit to a school at Holland Park in West London. A clear pitch to the next generation of voters and aspiring homeowners.
Simon, and what help for those aspiring homeowners, the first-time buyers?
Well, one of the biggest problems for first-time buyers is the deposit. Rents in London are so high, it's sometimes just impossible to save enough money. So the Liberal Democrats are proposing a scheme they call rent to own. The longer a tenant pays rent, the more of a stake they have in the property until after 30 years they own it outright.
OK, housing obviously a major issue for Londoners. What else was covered about the capital in the Lib Dems manifesto?
Well, yesterday Labour published its manifesto and there was no commitment to a diesel scrappage scheme, which the Mayor so badly wants before he introduces London's ultra-low emission zone. Well, the Liberal Democrats would have a scrappage scheme. What's more, they'd ban the sale of diesel cars and small vans from 2025. The party is also committed to the government taking over the troubled rail company Southern and its parent firm GTR. But I think Tim Farron's biggest pitch to Londoners is over Brexit. A majority of Londoners voted to stay in the EU, and a Liberal Democrat government would promise to hold a second referendum on any EU Brexit deal.
All right, Simon, thank you.
It was the turn of the Tory party to unveil its election manifesto today, which included a reform of social care funding that could end up affecting every Londoner who owns a home. The plans would mean anyone with a house over the value of £100,000 would be liable for the cost of their care at home. Theresa May said it was a sustainable plan. Critics said Londoners would be hardest hit. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has been to the marginal constituency of Harrow West to gauge opinion.
It's a slice of suburban London famous for one of Britain's poshest public schools. Churchill was one of a number of Harrow old boys who became Prime Minister. Yet for the last 20 years, the Harrow West constituency has been Labour. Now it's a marginal seat which the Conservatives hope to recapture. In a class for mature students at Harrow Arts Centre, the idea of linking social care to a wealth test based on property values was viewed with suspicion.
At the end of the day, every single policy that seems to come from the Conservatives means that the middle class have to pay more and they earn less.
I want to leave something to my children, my grandchild. So it's important to me that we don't come bankrupt when we die, sort of thing.
At the moment, being cared for at home is free if someone has assets worth under £23,500. The Conservatives want to raise that threshold to £100,000, and for the first time, the value of a home is counted as an asset. And in somewhere like Harrow, that covers just about everyone who owns a property.
Studios range from about £199,950, anything up to about the £250 mark. At the top range of the market, we've got a property on now for about £2 million, which can comprise of about a 5-bedroom detached property.
So nothing around here for £100,000?
Nothing around £100,000.
The Prime Minister argues her government is the first to come up with a serious proposal to tackle the social care crisis.
This is one of the great challenges that we face with an ageing population, and it's right that anybody who wants to be Prime Minister, any party that wants to be in government, faces up to that challenge and sets it out clearly for people.
These proposals won't affect everyone. Many people go through life without ever needing care in the home, even in old age. But many of us do worry about it. Winnie Young, the retired head of a language school, and her daughter Siobhan have just been to a seminar to learn more about the cost of care in old age and what the state can claim.
They get it all in the end anyway. You've just got to die to let them get their hands on it.
Living in Harrow, living in a London suburb, you're going to have assets. Most people are going to have assets of more than 100,000. Most people I know that have been born and live in London have got assets of more than that, just in their family home.
And not just in Harrow. Across London, the average property price is now approaching £500,000. Simon Harris, ITV News, Harrow.
During his time as London Mayor, Boris Johnson made it clear he opposed a third runway at Heathrow Airport. Well, now he's Foreign Secretary, you might think he'd be towing the Conservative Party line, especially as it was mentioned in their new manifesto. But he's told ITV News he's still against it, even though it puts him at odds with his boss, Theresa May. He spoke to our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
You are amazing. As London's mayor, he lobbied hard to stop a third runway. But as a senior member of the government, Boris Johnson is supposed to be on message at all times, especially during an election. And that's a problem, because official Conservative Party policy is to back Heathrow's expansion. Today, on a campaign visit to West London, the Foreign Secretary refused to toe the line.
You know, I'll be honest with you, I think it's very difficult to live. I think you can make the airport better. We respect the success of the airport. I'm a great, frankly, I'm Foreign Secretary. I use it the whole time. We want to see Heathrow working wonderfully, but I just think the noise pollution, the vehicular pollution, the air pollution, these are things, Simon, that really still have to be addressed.
Heathrow matters to politicians because hundreds of thousands of voters live beneath the flight paths, many of them in marginal constituencies where aircraft noise has a direct impact on quality of life. A bigger Heathrow means more planes overhead. For Conservative and Labour candidates fighting marginal seats in West London, both party manifestos could be a problem. The Tory manifesto explicitly backs a third runway at Heathrow, while Labour's appears to say the same without mentioning Heathrow by name. Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell is one of Labour's senior politicians. Like Boris Johnson, he's standing in a West London seat, and like the Foreign Secretary, he's at odds with his party's policy on Heathrow.
The Labour Party's position is that any development on aviation expansion in London and the South East is subject to meeting those conditions, which is about environmental protections and it is about economic benefits to the air itself. Obviously, as the constituency MP, I've historically campaigned against Heathrow Airport being expanded because I don't think it'd be able to meet those conditions.
I think there's a real lack of principle there. Either they represent a party and they represent the whole manifesto that they put forward, or they don't. And I don't think it's fair on voters, to be honest, to put forward one commitment in the manifesto and then have individual MPs saying that they don't support it.
In tight marginal seats where the battle is between Conservative and Labour, the message from the candidates appears to be, when it comes to Heathrow, don't believe everything you read in the manifesto. Simon Harris, ITV News, Hounslow.